and welcome to the monthly Leadership Forum Community Incubating Leadership Conversation, also known as ILCs. Just a brief background on the Leadership Forum community is that we're a 501c3 nonprofit that has a long history of over 100 years, providing a space for leaders to convene and explore leadership challenges, develop conscious leaders, and create solutions that result in meaningful and equitable change in organizations, education, and society. Part of what we offer is our monthly programming, where we host a incubator leadership conversation, also known as an ILC. These are learning/development conversations that serve as kind of a safe space for leaders to convene together around a topic, where provocateurs such as who we have today will share insights, tools, and perspectives on a topic that they're typically passionate about and knowledgeable on. And we do this in a way that facilitates, conversation and learning. So with that, although this is a conversation that we want everybody to be involved in, we ask that you, keep yourself muted in the meantime, if not speaking, to allow the lack of disruption, for our speaker. If you would like to be on our newsletter to know about more upcoming events, feel free to shoot me a private chat with your email address, and I'll make sure that you're included in that. So without further ado today, I'm happy to introduce our co-presenters today, Lyndon Rego and Sue Rose. Both are very, very just well-known, especially in the Greensboro community, but in our community as well, the Leadership Forum community. So Lyndon has a strong background in leadership development, working at the Center of Creative Leadership, and now founding Cometa, where he's a community catalyst for many initiatives. And Sue Rose is also an executive coach. Today, they'll be sharing their insight around, it's really an experience, and it's called ICU. So I actually don't really want to take away from their thunder on that piece, but you're in for a treat today as if you've been around. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Lyndon and Sue.
Great, thank you so much, Matt and Jill, for the welcome here. And as Matt says, we're really going to use a lot of our time to engage in a conversation together in breakouts, but we've got a little bit of setup for you just to give you some context as to where this work comes from. And so the presentation and the tool that we have is called ICU, and it's really recognizing the world in which we live in, where we're increasingly, if you will, separated from each other. We live in cities of strangers where we often don't know our neighbors. We communicate increasingly through social media in short bursts that are sometimes not so kind. And we see the impacts of this in the level of polarization present, say, in the United States today. I saw some data recently, some research data that indicates that nearly half as many of all Americans believe that the country should be split into two nations based on the political lines. It's pretty shocking information, but that's where things have taken us to. And some data also recently that as many as 50%, more than 50% of people who are working for companies are looking for new jobs. And some of this has to do with desires for advancement, but it's also about a lack of belonging that we feel. So in so many ways, there is a need for us to feel like we belong to each other. And David Brooks, who you might know as an author and a columnist, political commentator, said that it's really the central issue of our time. He says that we've entered an age of bad generalization. We don't see each other well. We don't see the heart and soul of each person, only a bunch of bad labels. To me, this is a core problem that our democratic character is faced with. Many of our society's great problems flow from people not being seen and known. We have to get better at seeing each other more deeply and being deeply seen. So that's really what we're about today. And curiously, I spent a couple of years in Africa working for the African Leadership University. And in South Africa, when you greet somebody, you use the word sawubona. And sawubona literally translates into ICU. And when people meet, there's a recognition that they are greeting somebody who's a unique individual, who's worthy of respect. But it also comes from the construct of this concept called Ubuntu that some of you are probably quite familiar with. And Ubuntu really stands for this idea of recognizing that we are part of a common web of humanity. And Desmond Tutu, who kind of popularized the concept of Ubuntu along with Nelson Mandela, said we often think of ourselves too frequently as just individuals, separated from one another. But we're really connected, and what you do really affects the whole world. So he really calls out for us to recognize that what the impact of what we do really spreads out and connects with all of humanity. So this concept of really recognizing that we are individuals who are worthy of respect, but we're also parts of collectives, is this recognition that we really need to be seen as who we are and who we belong to. And this was really the genesis for this effort that where a group of us came together as part of the Leadership Forum and launched this idea of a leadership lab where we'd work over the course of a year to create a model. And so what we're happy to share with you now is some of the outcomes of that model in this process. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sue Rose. Over to you, Sue.
Thanks, Lyndon. It's so delightful to be with everybody. Courageous community dialogue on this slide, but it could be called many things. In the spirit of what Lyndon just shared, it's an experience we're offering to everybody to be different as we sit together in conversation in a qualitatively different way, so that the outcome may lead to being seen more, feeling that way, and sharing meaning. So these are little soundbite icons in the cloud here, which many of are common to us, but it's doing them in a slightly different way. So when we go into our breakouts, we're actually encouraging everyone to just be fully present first. And as each speaker takes a turn, just listening generously. The listeners for each speaker will play back what they've heard. This is something we all often reflective listening describes. But the difference is, instead of listening for what we think, we're going to listen for what we hear. And as each speaker finishes their turn and gets 3 or 4 people to reflect, there's an opportunity for the speaker to kind of summarize and connect the dots about what he or she is hearing and share that with their listeners. We'd like you to leave a little time at the very end of the process, after each speaker has taken this turn, to collectively share some dots from the entire dialogue together and listen for the meaning that has been flowing through this dialogue. It's a very different kind of perception that we're encouraging you to do. Listen for the meaning that has flowed through your dialogue. Next slide. So a couple rules for the road. I never liked the word rules, but these are just some tips, okay? Obviously, a dialogue can happen between 2 or more people. Your group should have about 3 or 4. And so when someone speaks, we are encouraging you to suspend your tendency to give advice, to fix, or debate any points. We also would like you to not only take turns speaking, but offer reflective listening and allowing the speaker to feel heard without an agenda. And the last tip is no one interrupts, no one gives advice, and no one judges the content. If these are followed, it will be a substantively and qualitatively different kind of dialogue than we may be used to hearing. Next slide. So we came up with little cartoons to help illustrate some of this, and I won't read you all the details, but this is essentially Judy as the speaker answering her prompt, and there'll be a question prompt for you all here in a minute. Her prompt was, if you could talk to your 14-year-old self, what advice would you give or offer? And her basic story was about not feeling understood by people, especially in middle school. And she would tell herself at 14, well, not everyone's going to like you, so get used to it. And she remembered having more courage in high school to sit with friends or people she didn't know. And through that courage, she actually became friends with those folks through the 4 years of high school. Now her listeners took turns reflectively listening. So Tom reflects specifically on the fact that middle school years can be quite unsettling, and that he recognized that she struggled with that. And Raul reflected on the desire to be liked as so strong at the age of 14, to know who we are, and when we're just trying to figure out who we are. And that the advice she gave was encouraging herself to be more confident. And finally, Jasmine kind of zeroed in on the courage it took for Judy to sit with those students in high school that she didn't know. And there's a pause between each listener. Finally, this is the connect the dots part of the dialogue. So the speaker goes back and takes a moment, and you might give yourself some silences in the dialogue time to connect some dots that you're hearing and express how it makes you feel and what your new awarenesses are. And for Judy, she felt understood, but also didn't even realize that she may have really grown a lot from this experience that she had in ways that have given her some wisdom at this point. And maybe she's ready to take some more leaps of faith. So getting back to how this is going to look in a bullet form, we just want the speaker to share his or her experience, the listeners to summarize back what they've heard, not what they've thought, but what they've heard. And then finally, for the speaker to summarize through connecting some dots, what she's taking away and learned from listening to others listen to her or him. And then finally, we'd like you to leave time at the end of your dialogue sessions to really listen for that collective shared meaning. Okay, this allows us to go to the Ubuntu that Lyndon was sharing. Next slide, please. And the Ubuntu of feeling heard and seen. So here's our prompt for you all. You know, this year has been unusual, hasn't it? We've all had the same unusual year, very unusual for each of us to have gone through something so similar. So we want everyone to reflect on what has your experience been in this last year, and how have you grown in this past year? And really think about that part, how has it helped growth for each of us individually, and to share our own experience about that with each other when we go into our breakout groups. Often we listen for what is different, and this time we'd like you, as you listen, to listen for what's in common as well. And so Matthew, do your magic, please. When we come back, we'll share our experiences. Oh. I hope everybody had fun with this and meaningfulness. So we're going to just ask to share, if anyone would like to share what this experience was like for you, and what are you taking away? We're interested in that. So you can put it in the chat, if you are more so inclined to type than speak, and that's just fine. Or, raise your hand and come on in and share with the group. We're spending about 10 minutes sharing our experiences. Yes, Rob, come on in.
So, year of growth. It was the year of investing in oneself. It was the year of cocooning, and then of coming out. And then it's always the grappling between not wanting to give away that time that we spent on ourselves and give it all away to someone else now, right? So we get so how to achieve that balance. But I think all three of us had a lot of growth and a lot of reemergence happening.
Nice. So that was a common thread that you shared, was that there has been quite a bit of growth. Wonderful to hear. Resonates with many of us, I'm sure. Others, what was this experience like for you? Yes, Bob, go right in.
Well, I was with Joe Millington, and we each described a situation in our lives that made us very uncomfortable, and we felt not and it was not a good situation. We were kind of going down emotionally and trying to figure out why. And Joe, Joe's was a family situation that he was able to get on top of and turn it from a problem to sacrifice into an opportunity to
Wow.
bond better with his mother. And he really came away feeling so much better about himself through that experience.
Mm.
And mine was a racially oriented, that the whole George Floyd and the things that happened after that were very hard. And I
Mm.
went into some self analysis and decided that I was deceiving myself when I was considering that I'm not a racist, that I really am a racist. And I started reading. I read Kendi's, got involved in some groups, took a course, got involved with a group this year to, and actually I wrote a paper entitled "I Am a Racist,"
Wow.
which was cathartic.
Yes. Wow, Bob, thank you for being so transparent with that. It does sound like quite a year of growth. And did you feel heard in your group, each of you, and seen? Good, good. I see some comments about how it was positive, rich, and awakening and short experience. Sorry about that. I wish we could have more time. Someone else. I think I saw a hand go up. Beth, is that you? Oh, okay. Also, that the common experience of sharing diversity, adversity, struggle, and getting in touch with core authenticity. These are powerful words. And finding the strength at recognizing life is precious. I think all of us could raise our hand on that one, for sure. Yes, Rebecca, please.
Hi, Sue. Hi, everyone. I think, and like, in addition to just like what we talked about, the experience of just being fully present and like in a conversation and actually hearing someone, that felt so good. I feel like life is so busy and we're multitasking and doing so many things and have so much on our brains to just give pause and presence. I felt like the real energy connection with the people on the call. So I would love to be able to do more of that.
You're giving me chills, Rebecca, seriously. This is very, very heartening and beautiful.
Oh, let me see. Can you hear me?
Yes, Nancy,
Okay.
we can hear
Okay.
you. Uh-huh.
Good. I resonate with that. I found that the way I was being listened to, I experienced that as unusual. Not like, I guess most of my conversations, people are probably including me, can be more present. So unusual just meaning not all the time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, Anne.
I just wanted to change the thought here about, instead of sharing, one-on-one about our personal selves, how many times do we really in a work environment get to know the people that we're working with or the people who work for us? And I think, that's a place where, in a business environment, we tend to put a lot of distance between people. And not that we need to get into everybody's personal business, but even to find out what they really want out of their job, or how they really want to grow, or maybe they have talents that they aren't bringing to the table because they don't think they fit. It's just, we tend to keep those walls up. So I just want to throw that out there.
It's a very important point, and I'm glad you're sharing that. Yeah. And anyone can share anything on any connected dot they would care to. Yes, Joel.
Yeah, to build on what Anne said there, yesterday I was hosting an event within Square, and I had two people that were on a panel conversation, and really both of them talked about the people management responsibilities that they have. And what they said, you know, first of all, it all came down to relationships. And I think some of what we're talking about right here is how to have trust in the people that we're interacting with, and, you know, really have a relationship. But they went deeper, and they both expressed the greatest joy they have in managing people is seeing those people learn and grow and be successful.
Yeah.
And I can't help but to think about this process as being one that can help to facilitate that process. Maybe a slightly different frame as a question, maybe not, you know, it depends on your circumstances. But just, you know, that idea of being present and really just kind of suspending judgment, seeing, and really hearing people on a deeper level rather than just their words too.
That's a very, very profound insight too. And thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Yes, Gerald, Jerry. Yeah, come off. Yeah, you're still muted. That's there. Good to see you again, Jerry.
It was really important to recognize the to hear people respond to me, to what I had said, and be able to sit there and really concentrate on hearing it. That's a really profound experience. That's very, very significant. And we don't give any credit to that, really, in my understanding of our culture. And if you think about what we're trying to do, which is to really change the thinking and the mindset of people around us, that's a very fundamental part of it. So it's really significant. So thanks for hearing that.
Gerald, thank you so much for sharing it. That's probably, you know, we can all find ways of doing that more, I'm sure. Yes. Anyone else?
This is Lyndon.
Yes. I'm sorry, Lyndon, you're muted.
Okay. I think, can you hear me now, Sue?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So I think what Jerry shared was at the heart of this ICU idea, right? So often when we share things, people are telling us what they think in return.
Right.
You know, not necessarily reflecting back, acknowledging what we had to say, what our experiences have been like. And I think this is part of, the intentionality about this process. And I think at the end of the day, too, I think that point of connecting dots, I think in terms of we live, my conversations was, somebody said, like this cocoon of experience, right? And to some degree, we've been isolated, but once we kind of share in this meaningful way what we've gone through, we find that so many commonalities that others have been experiencing a lot of what we're facing. And with that comes a sense of like this, the sense of kinship, right? Of being part of the same fabric, yeah.
Yes, I felt that, and I had a conversation with Gurkan. Did I say that right, Gurkan? Gurkan. And he and I were the only people in the group, so we had some time. And even though our languages were our first languages were different, we were able to really communicate deeply, and it was that encouraged me tremendously about the potential of this. Like you're saying, Jerry, you don't even have to be with people who necessarily speak your native tongue clearly to feel heard, you know, and it's just, it was really profound experience for me. Yeah. Yes, Marta.
Yeah, I resonate with what you are saying, because was very profound in the sense I didn't feel judged. So I'm not feeling judged meant to me to be able to also connect deeper with my feelings and to be able to share them. So so knowing they were there to hear and feeling that, it changed also my relationship with my own feelings and my capability to share my vulnerability at the end of the day. That was about how vulnerable was last year for everyone.
That's such a really, it's a nice insight in that by feeling heard, we can get in touch with our own vulnerability in a more comfortable way. That's, I mean, that's really, really good stuff. So thank you so much for sharing that. Well, this is very rich. I'm so thrilled that everybody's sharing all these things. I think it may be time, Lyndon, for you to carry on here. We could do
Yeah.
this all day, right? Go ahead.
So I'm going to come back to the presentation for a moment because we've got just a couple of things to share with you. So I think in terms of this dialogue here, I'm just going to do something with my screen so I have my controls. Okay. So we've gone through a process which is about using this practice of courageous community conversations, but wanted to point you to a couple of resources that we've got here, and one of which is that there is a link, and let me see if I can place this also into the chat here. There is a link where you can access the document that Sue drew on to talk about the process in the comic strip. So we've got a resource that a group of us have worked on over the past year. So Bill Hennix, who's on this call, has been very instrumental. Jerry Limestall, who's also here with us, joined us for some of the time and helped us put together the framework, this model, and this tool. So feel free to click on that link to get access to that document, which unpacks this process and also offers a couple of tools related to that. There's also an online tool called ICU, which is a website that's linked there that gives you as many as 60 different questions that you can use. And it's got a framework and a process with visual images that you could use on Zoom calls to have these conversations. So last year when we did a similar session for the Leadership Forum, we used that web tool for the conversation. This time we just chose to focus on one particular question. And if you've got thoughts and comments here, feel free to reach out to me in terms of if you'd like some additional resources or talk about the application of this to some of the spaces that we have here. The thing that I wanted to kind of say here is that we've gone through a process, a small process of using this way of connecting. And what is the potential that we might have to use this more in our families? Because oftentimes the people that we spend most of our time with are not necessarily people that we extend this kind of listening to, this level of acknowledgement to. So too, as we talked about the workplace, what are the opportunities for us to kind of, if you will, humanize and connect more deeply with the people that we work with, and acknowledge their presence and their voices. It's not necessarily about agreement, you know, in reflecting back. It is about letting people know that we've heard them. And so too, as we come to the space of community where we see so many breakdowns across the world, how might we also engage with people who might have different points of view and who we don't necessarily know, but being able to extend to them this level of understanding, appreciation through our ability to offer them presence and listening and acknowledgement for who they are. Yeah. So encourage you to maybe reach out and think about how might you use this in your work and in your lives as well. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Anne. And Anne has got a few closing thoughts for us. And Anne, if you want me to have the slides up here, I do have a slide. Let me know, I'll keep it going. If you'd like to come back on the screen, let me know too.
You can go back to the prior slide and then we'll, okay, good. So if you've enjoyed this session, we encourage you to help support us. We are a nonprofit 501c3 and we exist on the donations and on our membership dollars. So you can use these codes to be able to go and either donate to our programs or become a member. And as a member, you will have some options to help direct our organization. We have membership meetings and and you can also get discounts on certain things and access to certain tools that are being sponsored by our organization. So please consider making a donation or becoming a member and joining us. And if you can go to the next slide. So I am putting into the chat a link to the courses section of our website. I wanted to highlight today a new workshop that we are going to be conducting on November 22nd. This is a 4-hour professional training session. We're doing this in partnership with Polarity Partners. They presented at our summit, and if you want to see more of that, you can go to our YouTube channel and see that presentation and learn a little bit more about it. But basically, this is all about developing new ways also of having conversations. So it's developing a process by which you can look at the and between two opposing views instead of the or, and being able to look and find new perspectives on solutions to complex problems. So this is a process that we felt like many of our members, whether you're working in business or you're a consultant or working in with a social group, that is a valuable process for getting people to look at different perspectives and be willing to make change. So not seeing the world as black and white necessarily, but seeing it as a place where we can come together. So there is a cost to this. Polarity Partnership, it will be conducting this workshop in partnership with us. And also you get a 6-month individual practitioner license out of this training. Going into 2022, we want to take this a step further and provide a intensive class on getting fully certified within polarity thinking. So you can go to that website and register. We only have 20 seats, so please go out there and express your interest. We do have a few seats that are on scholarship, so find that you need a scholarship in order to attend, but would really be able to use this, please let us know. All that information is on the website. So with that, I would like to thank Lyndon and Sue for being with us today and giving us this, experience of being able to gain new understanding through deeply listening and reflecting. So thank you very much, Sue and Lyndon. And if anybody has questions or comments, we'll hang around for a few minutes and happy to chat with you.
We've also placed, thank you, Lyndon and Sue. We've also placed a feedback survey in the chat as well, so we can continue to improve these sessions. But you're all's.
Thank you all. And as Anne said, we'll be around just for a few minutes to see if anyone has any questions or follow-ups. You can take yourself off mute if you do. And Candy, I think I just noticed that you just joined. So we did record the session. Good to have you again, Candy. And we're happy to chat for a few minutes with anyone who has any questions.
Thank you for